Hello, I'm Zoe Clifton from Bellarine Sewing Centre. And today we're going to talk to you about part one of our block building sessions. Today we're going to use this lovely little quilt here that we've done just as a scrap quilt, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit later on about how you can use jelly rolls and layer cakes to also achieve this quilt. Traditionally, this little block is called the beggar's block, and it doesn't have a centre block, as you can see here. Still looks lovely, but I decided to change the block pattern and I decided to put a centre block in each one just to make it more like a 9-patch unit. This shows you the original block. Using the electric quilt software, I've drawn up a mini quilt here, which is the same sort of version as we've got here, but without the centre block. And I've then shown you what the quilt would look like if you went bigger and keeping the blocks more structured. And then I've also drawn up in EQ a couple of variations to show you what the quilt would look like if you just use a 2-colour. I love 2-colour quilts, they look stunning. So that's the original version without the centre block. By adding the centre block, as you can see here, we then get this look, which I felt filled the gap, and it's what we really needed to have with this block. I then used the software to draw up this mini quilt, which is what we have here. I've then shown you a larger version with this block using sashing coming through to really separate the block. Again, it looks stunning as a 2-colour quilt, but you can use scrap fabrics if you wish. If you remove the sashing, you get another design come through which really pops out these little pinwheels, which obviously are not in here, but they are in here. It's just how you showcase them by the fabrics that you use. I then rotated the blocks and you can see it's the same quilt, but by rotating the blocks, you get a completely different design. So it's loads of fun where you stop and you think this simple little block can just really do one simple little thing. It actually can do quite a lot of different things. So today I'm going to show you how to construct the block, but I'm going to use slightly different pieces. I used scraps from home when I made this, and you really can get away with a 9-inch square of fabric or equivalent to if you're going to do this mini quilt version here. And these are just 3 strips that are cut 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And then the squares that we're going to put on the end must equal the same size as the width of your strip. So the squares that we put on here to sew through are 1.5-inch squares. So out of a 9-inch square of this blue fabric, I could get the 4 blocks. I've repeated each block, but I've just twisted it as you go around the quilt so that it then creates a secondary design to make this gorgeous mini quilt. You don't have to make 4 the same. You can use scrap fabrics and you can make a completely different version of a variety of different scraps at home. I love scrap quilts. I've published 2 scrap quilt books and I just absolutely love them. So that's one way to do it. I'm going to use a slightly larger piece of fabric to do this to show you that you can go bigger if you want to, so you can see the difference in size. So for these strips, I've cut these pieces 2.5 inches wide and 6.5 inches long. Following the theme and the maths, the corner squares that I've got on here were cut to 2.5 inches, which is the same width as the fabric strips. So you need to have 3 strips of fabric of your main print, and you need to have 4 squares, and on those squares I've sewn through the diagonal, drawn through the diagonal, and we're going to put 2 on here. So just a quick pencil line. You don't need to go heavy with this, just a nice light line so you can see what you're doing. And you can see I've got the point coming to here and the point coming from the center out, so that on both occasions those points are heading in like this. So you can see that's what's going to happen there. So what we're now going to do is sew on the line, exactly on that pencil line. So we'll make sure that the fabrics are lined up nicely on the background fabric. I'm very spoilt with my machine because as soon as I put my foot on the foot control, it will automatically lower the foot for me and sew through And I also have some built-in thread cutters, so I can just snip that and that's cut the thread for me. If you don't, that's okay. You can just pull it out of the side and cut those threads off. I've also got the added luxury with my BQ 3100 of this laser. I don't know if you can see that laser, but I actually don't need to draw lines on my fabric, because when I shoot that laser through to the point of my square, it will then help me sew through without drawing a line. That's just one of those extra snazzy little features of this machine. So we'll sew through. We'll line that up nicely. There's really no need to pin this. Come around, make sure that's lined up. And then we'll sew through this way and cut that off. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to place the 1/4 inch line of my ruler onto the sewn line and cut off the corner fabric. And turn it around and repeat. So the 1/4 inch line of your ruler is going on the sewing line. And then we'll cut those corners off. We'll do the same with this one. And we'll get rid of that. And now we're going to push those corner fabrics out from the right side of the fabric so that it sits nicely. And there you can see we've got the 2 sides to our block. And now we're just going to sew 3 pieces together like this to form this as a unit. You can then see on the quilt that they're rotated. One comes across, one goes up, one comes across. It kind of makes it really nice and easy when you're pressing as well, because you end up with not very much bulk under here. Great as a scrap quilt. If you're going big and you want to make it quicker, then go bigger. To do that, why not use a jelly roll? A jelly roll is already 2.5 inch strips, and you're going to cut it into 6.5 inch sections. So you can certainly make that. You'll get 2 blocks out of each strip in a jelly roll. So you're going to get a really nice size quilt out of that. Or you can do the same by using a layer cake and just cutting your strips across and then down so that you're getting the full use of the fabric. This is a great way to use pre-cuts because you get a wide variety of fabrics. There's normally 42 fabrics in a jelly roll, and you get that nice variety using the whole range in a quilt. So depending on whether you go small and scrappy, whether you use a jelly roll or whether you use a layer cake, you can achieve a beautiful quilt in no time at all with this really quick and easy block. Thank you for joining us.